when you look at the best quarterbacks in the league, and Nick recently, a couple weeks ago, you made a list, we don't often hear Deshaun Watson's name mentioned. Is he being overlooked as some of the best quarterbacks in the league right now, or at least in his conference?
Well, I think he is. I think he's one of the best, definitely one of the best young quarterbacks, and I think he's ascending. You know, the problem is he hasn't been healthy. You think about last year, they really done a bad job in surrounding and building around him to protect. Last year he was sacked 62 times. I think he almost had a punctured lung. He had to take the bus ride. You know, but
That's
you talk
right,
about being a winner. You talk about being a leader. You talk about a guy that's able to improvise, to make those off-schedule plays. You talk about a guy that can have late-game heroics. We've seen it all from him. You know, now it's just taking the next step is being able to get past the Patriots, which they've always had trouble with as an organization. And, you know, if Deshaun can take the next step, and as Brady continues, you know, eventually transitions out of the league, I think the AFC is going to be wide open. I think Houston will be right there.
I think that we should be, if he had the type of talent around him, when I'm talking about institutional talent, we should be talking about him the way we talk about Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
Came in early as a rookie, took over, immediately is like, okay, this guy's a star. And a lot of times we don't give kids credit for what they do in college because that don't matter in the pros. But what he did twice facing Alabama, we need to recognize.
Yep.
Because Alabama, two of the best teams going against that Clemson, man, he took those defenses apart. He took apart a pro defense with pro players at his biggest stage. I'm talking about he dominated. There was a bunch of special players on the field, and he was the most special of them all. And then you come into the NFL, to me, he just hadn't had a John Dorsey. John Dorsey fires Hugh Jackson, is able to get the quarterback. I'm not saying Bill O'Brien should be fired, but you need to be able to support him, realizing that Hugh was not what Baker needed. And then this offseason, man, they went spending wild in Cleveland to support their franchise quarterback. And I believe that is the difference. Right now, Houston, they don't have a general manager in place.
It's unbelievable.
They got some
like
guy.
They literally don't have.
Listen, Brian Gaine got fired. They have some power structure where it's like a joint chiefs of staff, if you will. Right. Bill O'Brien, who you said you're not saying you should fire him, but he certainly has been on the hot seat multiple times and escaped. He just keeps getting more and more power when you would think he would get less. The former Patriots team chaplain, Jack Easterby, is somehow one of their major decision makers, and that is the problem for Deshaun. Yeah. Because Deshaun has been brilliant. He took over at halftime of his first NFL game, and those next 6 games, he was outstanding. Now, he threw a bunch of interceptions, but he made enormous plays until he tore his ACL
he's running for his life.
And they've never put a good offensive line in front of him. And I think people forget how good he was last year after he really got his legs underneath him. First 6 games of the year, coming off the ACL, 9 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, a 91 rating, okay. The next 10 games, 17 touchdowns, 2 picks, a 112 rating, and was outstanding despite not having a running game, which they still don't, despite not having an offensive line, which they still don't, and led them to the playoffs, and they were bad in the playoff game. He was bad in the playoff game. They were bad in the playoff game against the Colts. People think that I'm down on the Texans because I didn't have him high on my list. It has nothing to do with Deshaun. I think if you flip-flop Deshaun and Luck or Deshaun and Baker, he would be extraordinary, and those guys could potentially struggle.
No, he's not as good as Andrew Luck.
No. I'm not saying he's as good as Andrew Luck. I'm saying if you put him behind the Colts offensive line, we would see the best version of him. And I think that and right now the Texans offensive line, it's a 4th, a 5th, a 2nd, a 6th, and a 7th round pick. Now, they did spend a 1st and a 2nd offensive lineman this year, but they caught flat-footed in the draft. The Eagles traded 1 spot ahead of them to get the guy they wanted as a swing tackle in Andre Dillard, so they had to settle on Titus Howard, and the Texans are just always, right now you would say, why aren't they trading for Trent Williams? They have the 2nd most cap space in football. Yeah. Well, the answer might be because who makes the call? When you don't have a GM, who trades for a guy like that? And Lamar Miller is still there going into his 4th year when he's never been great with the Texans. I don't think they're well managed.
Right.
And I think that prevents him and DeAndre, who should be one of the best quarterback wide receiver combos in football, from reaching their full potential.
Well, they're not well put together as well, and they've spent a lot of their cap equity on defense. They're trying to figure out what they're going to do with Jadeveon Clowney. We know that J.J. Watt even though he's a great Texan, they pay him $100 million, and they haven't decided to surround. When you have a talent like him, you don't let Dwayne Brown walk away for peanuts. You make sure that you keep his left tackle to keep him upright and be able to support him with a good running game. Fuller's nice, but he's not, a top 10 running back in this league. And eventually Miller. They're going to have to eventually start surrounding this kid and building this team around him and transitioning from a defensive team to an offensive team and give him what he needs to be successful, because the league has changed. And he's shown that if you give him a little bit of talent around him, that he can be dangerous and explosive. His ability to buy time with his feet, his ability to throw the ball accurately down the field, the ability for him to come up big in the biggest moments has already been proven. He's already the leader of this team. He's a guy that's mild-mannered. He's a guy that walks around with the right, proper respect for his teammates and for the veterans. Now you have to do what's right by him, and that's around him, because you're on the timetable, because in the next 3 years you're going to have to pay him max money because he's that talented.
Just quickly, we all agree that he should be better than he is right now because of the pieces around him. He mentioned in this article, in this interview he did, that he would like to eventually follow the path that Aaron Rodgers has seemingly taken. One of the biggest takeaways was Aaron Rodgers is better off schedule than almost anyone else out there. He would love to work on that part of his game. But do you see a path whereby Deshaun Watson could even remotely come close to the kind of talent and career that Aaron Rodgers has had?
No, Deshaun, he has the type of talent that he can be one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. As far as playing off schedule, he's always played well off schedule. He's a better athlete than Aaron Rodgers. He takes more chances, though. When he wants to be in the breath of Aaron Rodgers, he wants to win a Super Bowl. He wants to be considered a top 5 quarterback. But ultimately, I think he wants the precision where I'm not going to throw the ball to the opposition. The difference between the good and the greats at that is I'm going to not turn the ball over. I'm not going to let them get their hands on the ball. And early in his career, he's done too much of that, and I believe that's the reason why people maybe don't necessarily give him the notoriety that he deserves.
And that's where he deserves the most credit. For the first 13 games of his career, he threw 15 picks. It was a pick a game for him. Those last 10 games.
The most criticism.
Right, absolutely. The last 10 games, he threw 2. If he can keep that up and not be sacked 62 times, which is a good way to have the football beat out of you, then he'll be fine. But that sack number, I don't think is going to go down with that Texans offense.
4,100 yards passing, 500. That puts him in elite company.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.